This is a video for Kawasaki's One Key helmet lock. Took a look at this yesterday. It was quite confusing. So I took it inside today and tried to read the instructions. Does not help. Have the lock housing and the key housing and a bunch of tumblers. And they say to keep the bag of tumblers separated. Looking at the instructions and how you're supposed to almost do a trial and error and try to understand if it stays flush or not. I started to understand these tumblers are going to line up with the different geometry of the specific key, and you have to figure out for which tumbler that lines up, for which position that lines up, which tumbler you're supposed to use. So what I did was put some markings on the location of where that groove lines up with the key, and for the tumbler housing location, and I'm going to try to line up the correct tumbler that fits that geometry of the key. So that's going to be the trial and error. The instructions try to maybe explain that, but in a very confusing way. So it was not until I actually just started to play around with it to try to understand how this worked. I'll show you the tumbler and what geometry makes them a little bit specific. So didn't understand how this worked until I tried to put it together. The tumbler has a outside offset that fits in this pocket, and there's a spring that goes in between that cavity and the offset here. So when you put it in, that pushes the tumbler out. And what you're trying to line up is this inside offset. So this is actually upside down, I think. But this inside offset, there's different dimensions of each one. I think this is the lowest position, and then there's a middle position, and it goes higher and higher on the inside. So what that's going to do, as I can try to understand, is try to line up wherever the tumbler housing location is and the height that the tumbler needs to hit up against. So there's a height here that you might say is the second lowest from the bottom, and then this is like the highest, and this is like the lowest. Depending on where it is, it goes through this peak. That's going to be another tumbler, and then there's a fifth tumbler here, which is the lowest position. So I'm going to have to try to figure out which tumbler to use for each one of these positions, line it up in this housing with the spring, and see if it actually works. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Should just read the labels. So it looks like 1 is the highest, 2, 3, 4 is the lowest. And where the tumblers are going to line up is this location here, and it's going to be that geometry on the side. So if I had to guess, this would maybe be position number 2, and then this is maybe 3, this is maybe 1, goes up to 4, the highest at the peak, and then it goes back down to 1. So I'm going to be guessing here. Maybe that's wrong. The lowest is 4. 64. So I'm going to think that it's going to go tumbler. I don't know. Maybe those are two are the same. I'm just going to have to guess on this. Yeah. Try to do this systematically. So there's 5 tumblers. Five tumblers. This position I think is the lowest. The lowest on this is number 4, so I'm going to guess that's a number 4. Second position is maybe the highest. So the highest is 61. So that's a 1. Then I think it goes to a number, the second lowest. It's a guess. Second lowest, which is going to be a number 2, 62. Then maybe the highest, back to the highest, which is a 4. No, wait. The highest is a 1. I'm sorry. Second lowest is a 3. 3. And then third highest is going to be a 2. This is all a guess. So I'm going to guess that the pins, the tumblers, from the closest to the key on the outside is going to be a 64, 61, 63, 61, 62. That could be off. But that's what I'm guessing. I'm going to try to build it. And I need 2 1s, so I need another number 1. And I think the way that you assemble this is actually upside down. But that's the easiest to hold the spring. Actually, I'm going to start from the back to the front. So the back is a 2. So this is a 2. I need to fit the spring in first. And then fit the housing. But to be honest, it doesn't really spring in and out. So I may not be doing this right. So I got the tumbler to fit. It actually just takes a little bit of nudging for it to actually fit through the housing. And I got the tumbler in with the spring. Testing to make sure it bottoms out. It's upside down. And the key goes all the way through. And you see the tumbler reacting to that. And then what you're looking for is flushness on this profile to understand if you got the correct tumbler to the position of the key geometry. And it has to sit flush for this cylinder to spin. So I think I got the correct tumbler. So the deepest one I thought was a 2, a 62, 9, I'm sorry, my eyes are horrible. 96, number 2. CO 96, number 2 is the deepest. And then I think the next one back is a number 1. So I'll drop a spring into the chamber with the CO 96, number 1. Drop that in. And of course, each one of these takes a little bit to actually get it to fit. So I'll test it again. Next flush with the 2 and the 1. Hard to tell on both sides. Next one back, I thought was a number 3. So I'll drop a spring. Then put the number 3 in. And does not fit the best. What I did was try to shove this in to make it fit. And by doing that, it pulled it in. So it looks like it's flush. So I think that one's correct position. Okay. So I think I got it right. Move on to the next step. Step 4, while lightly holding the tumblers in the rotor, remove the ignition key. If the tumblers are not held in place, the tumblers or springs may become dislodged. They're still in there. Step 5, inserts key again. Make sure that all tumblers are flush with the rotor. The stopper tumbler C should be protruding as shown. So this one. If the key fits all the way through, it pushes up against this, so it can't fall back to flush because the key is bottom out. If the key did not go all the way to the back, the stopper would fall down flush. It won't actuate. So you need the key to actually fit through the tumblers all the way to bottom out. That presses up against the stopper so it doesn't fall flush. Do not attempt to install the rotor into the helmet lock if the tumblers are not level. If the tumblers are not flush, the lock may become stuck when fitted into the helmet lock. Step 6, do not insert the key to the bottom or the stopper tumbler will freeze. Okay, place the key and rotor A. Do not insert the key to the bottom. How do you not? Place the key and the rotor A on the opening of the cylinder B with the stopper tumbler C facing the groove D. Whatever. So this goes in how? While pressing in the stopper tumbler lightly, turn the key clockwise about a quarter turn. The rotor will go into the key cylinder. Think so? So I finally got the lock inside of the housing. Problem was, and I can't show you now, the instructions are pretty poor, really poor. It had the stopper C that was sticking up, pointing outward, because that's kind of what the instructions say. While the stopper tumbler C facing the groove D, whatever that means. So I understood that as C facing the groove D, but that was wrong. Actually, C had to be pointed down, so I had it flip 180, and then it actually fit into the key. One thing you can do is there's this in the back that allows you to kind of move the housing left and right. Actually, it unlocks it, but that moves so that the actual insert can actually sit down and flush. So I had to adjust this kind of left and right for it to sit flush. But really the main issue was the stopper C had to be facing down, not toward the top, which these instructions kind of inferred. Anyway, I got the tumbler configuration correct. Actuates. It sits in the housing. So this is finally complete. The next part is to install the bracket on the bike and to mount this. So that should be the easy part. But all right, that was kind of a pain. Instructions were horrible. I had to figure out myself, but I hope this will help someone out in the future.